We only call ourselves black or reference our skin color as identity because of white influence. This one again, this one annoys me. This one annoys me.
Yeah.
Right? There's a few reasons there. This assumes that we never acknowledge our objective appearance as dark-skinned people. As if we don't notice that I am dark. Under a certain light, I can appear close to black. As if that is not something that would ever occur unless somebody that's not that color comes along. And then I'm like, oh, wow, actually, you're light and I'm as if we're not going to know. We notice green is green. You know, black people, we're very colorful people. We love colors. We just always go any tribe, they love different colors. They play with the reds, they can find the greens, they can play with whatever. We are aware of colors. And if you want to go on the deeper spiritual context of it all, right, we understand that colors represent different frequencies, the whole rainbow, different hues.
Yeah.
Colors mean something. They relate to something. So you're telling me we're never going to look at our color and think what that relates to? Especially as our skin, the hue of our skin relates directly to the sun and our relationship to the sun. You think we're never going to think about that and talk about that and what that relationship means? Meanwhile, we've got plenty of evidence of our ideas about blackness, right, in every culture, right? So I think that's a nonsense. Again, I don't think it's true. That's my opinion.
I think in modern times, though, at least, it will be academic to propose that black gave rise to it was an antithesis to white. So that when you see the oncoming of the kind of civil rights era, you see the Black Panther Party, the points in the 50s, the black exploitation, we was definitely using the term as an antithesis to white.
Get you.
That's not the history of it. Clearly, that's not the history of us self-identifying with our tone or our dark skin or our melanation. But yeah,
you see, the funny thing is, I honestly think the white was an antithesis to black. It was the other way around. They saw us doing that. When they understood that, they did that. Because that I'm going to get to why I believe that. But yeah, you know, on that note, let's check out this clip, right? This is the bro Obenfo Obadele Kambon having a discussion with there's 2 points he makes in this.
There's also a problem with the term Africa and African because also that's not an indigenous word. That if you look in our own languages, that anytime we're referring to this land, we refer to it as the land of black people, right? So in Chi, you know, an example would be Abibi Mine, coming from the B, which is the same thing you have in Bidie, which is the word for charcoal, and it's referring to the land of black people. If you come to Yoruba, Ile Adulawo, again, you're saying this is the land of black people. If you come to Kikongo, it's called Nsia Bandombe, again referring to the land of black people. When you are using this term African, then you're actually coming etymologically through Latin, and it's a Latin word of obscure origin where there are at least a dozen etymologies that are, you know, given out there, but none of them tells you that this is the land of black people.
I forgot to mention this earlier, right? So even when we talk about the diaspora wars and the African, the term African, like he directly said, is another title that came from foreigners, right? If you look what he says there, so powerful. If you look at the terms that we use to call the land, we refer to it as the land of black people, just in different tongues. Because guess what? People there are black. I mean, like I said, so that went to the point I was making a second ago about white people being other people have names that are linked to their land, right? We, as a people, named our land after the fact that black people come from that land. So how about that? We did that, right? So anyway, there was another video I want you to show from my brother.
Move through water. And by the same token, black people, anytime we find ourselves in a context where we're surrounded by non-black enemies, we come together on the basis of what we have in common, which is common genotype, that's common ancestry, common phenotype, which is very apparent because of the shared ancestry, and then also because we have common descendants, this leads to common interests. So we can see this in classical Kemet. Where is classical Kemet located? But right there at the threshold of where our non-black enemies are located. So it's no surprise that we started to refer to ourselves as Kemetu plural, single, as individuals. You would have an individual like Sabi Kim at the time of Sarah Jedkari Isesi, where he's referring to himself as Sabi Kim, literally Sabi, the black man. You would have the term for Usir as Kim Ur, literally translating to the great black one. You would have Aset referred to as Kemet, referring to the female black one. You would have Henenit Kim, another historical figure, and Hepi Kim Imahu, Hepi Kim also referring to as Hepi, the black one, Henenit, the black one. And then in the so-called pyramid text, you have us being referred to as Kemetiu, again, plural of black people. And again, when you look at the historical context, anytime we find ourselves very close to our common enemies, we come together on the basis of what we have in common. And you found the same thing in Haiti, right? So the fact that Nana Jean-Jacques Dessalines is saying we're all the blacks, we're referring to ourselves as the blacks, I'm sure he wasn't necessarily reading the pyramid text before he came to that conclusion. I'm sure he wasn't necessarily, reading the text of the Sana expedition of Sabi Kem under Sarah Jedkar Isesi, but he came to that exact same conclusion. I'm sure those in the Black Power movement weren't necessarily, reading all these texts from, 3,000 and 4,000 years ago, but they came to the same conclusion. Though
He just gives us what the logic I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Right? We understood the logic of using this term to unify us, regardless of culture. He's arguing the establishment of Kemet, the ancient Egypt culture. This is accepted, the Menes, this for 3200 BC. This is when Kemet, the first dynasty, was established.
Yeah.
This was after the final war. So they was warring, trying to keep out invaders for a long time. And then they finally unified all the tribes, all the people in Africa, basically, that area of Africa. They come from the west, they come from the south. They all come together to fight them off, one great war. And it was one. And then that kingdom, that dynasty was established, right? Literally, what they did there is they recognized that we got to unify, and the one thing that unifies us all, and it was our blackness. So that back then, and he knows all the ways that they term themselves black,
Yeah.
right?
That was
And then earlier he was telling us all the ways we do that to this day, right? In different tribes, we have this terminology because again, we recognize our blackness.
And I think it's powerful for indigenous people to use the term black when they're using their own language, because the video before showed you black in different tongues, sounded different. So as much as they're calling themselves black, they're actually naming themselves with their own language.
Yes.
What we're doing is using a foreign language to name ourselves, and I think that's a little bit different.
No, I agree. And he says this. This is a good. I'll put the link for this in the bottom of the description. Check out the bro. He's an American guy that moved over to Ghana ages ago. He's a professor now, and he knows his thing. If you're interested, check him out. Very smart guy.